Hey everybody, thanks for visiting my profile page and watching my videos. My name is Kirk Kerber. I'm a natural born psychic medium. I have been giving readings for over 35 years. I turned professional about 10 years ago. I've also personally produced and written and hosted over 850 late night cable television shows in New York City that we had a live call in, and over 20 years, every Monday, I hosted a show where you could call in and talk about psychic mediumship, metaphysics, all kinds of conspiracy theories. It was kind of like just a Manhattan based kind of modeled after Coast to Coast, if you know what that is. And so yeah, I created over 850 TV shows about psychic phenomenon and spiritual topics. I'm also a PTSD survivor and a PTSD hypnotic therapist to treat complex and regular PTSD, as well as certified in therapeutic hypnosis for transgender people that are transitioning, which is like a PTSD on crack. So I know about so those are the things I know about. I've also been a mentor most of my life, and now do professional coaching and mentoring. And I also have about 100 videos that I made over the past 20 years on YouTube. So there's about 400 hours of video content all over the web on social media dedicated to spirituality, psychic mediumship, energy reading, auras, chakras, and the like. So I'll just open up with that. And about 4 weeks ago, I saw the Murdaugh trial, and I kept looking at it on YouTube and the YouTube vids, and I would see Alex's face on most of the YouTube videos, and I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this or go in that deep to this thing. Maybe I'm just going to skip over this one. And so I saw a documentary on the ID channel, and I was like, all right, let's watch this. And so then I was hooked. Then I tracked down the HBO. So I watched the ID channel 3 times. I watched the HBO 3 times, and then the trial started, and I started watching the trial. And so about 2.5 weeks into it, I thought, I was watching it kind of like everybody else, like, oh, this is unbelievable, and I can't believe this. And, you know, as a psychic medium, every psychic medium has a different niche. So some psychic mediums, they deal with medical, intuitive stuff. Some do solve police cases. Some do psychometry, which is, you know, if you bring me your grandma's watch or lighter, you hold the object and then you get the vibration and you get the reading. There's also tarot readers. I forgot to mention I've been reading the tarot now for 35 years as well when I give readings. But my area of expertise is not in any of those. I give something called the life reading. It encompasses and includes your past lives, and also the soul plan or soul arc that you decided with your counselor on the other side. You know, what am I going to do in this lifetime? What is it going to be about? What kind of family am I going to incarnate with? What are my parents going to be like? What am I going to focus on? And so those readings take about 5 to 7 hours for me to personally get for the client. And then, so I get a lot of the reading before, and then I meet with the client face to face up to 1 hour and 15 minutes. And then I also do a follow-up email. They're really extensive. So there's about 7 hours in all of that in order to get that for the client. And the readings, I tell the clients, you're not going to have another one of these for at least a year. It takes 3 to 6 months to absorb one of these readings that I give my clients. It's really deep, really encompassing, and just like goes through your entire life and the entire life of your soul and all past lives. So having said that, I start watching the Murdaugh trial, and I'm getting like who's who are the players here, what's going on. You got Harpootlian, which is Murdaugh's lawyer, and 3 other like lawyers. Then you've got the prosecution and their personalities, and the guy named Waters, who's the lead prosecutor. They start putting it together. So the most outstanding thing is Alec is now, if they didn't, you can't prosecute if you don't have enough or you don't think you can win a case. So just having that going in, they didn't prosecute for, I think, over a year. And I don't even think they didn't collect DNA. They never found the guns. For some reason, they didn't check the house or the beach house, or the main house, or the cars, for some reason. So they never find these guns. But so the thing starts off. You have to go all the way back to when this kid Paul has a boat accident. He's in a blackout. They're on the water late at night in this boat. They're blind drunk, and they're fighting over the wheel. And according to most accounts, Paul pushes the gas all the way down, and the boat runs straight into a bridge pylon, and half of them get knocked out of the boat, and they're all bloody and cut up. And Paul doesn't really have any injuries at all. And then a woman is missing. And so this kicks it off. So they don't find the woman for like months. And they find her just floating in the water. The current was so fast that it took the body. So this kind of, all of a sudden, the Beach family who lost the daughter in the water, they are either trying to get Paul convicted, or trying to do like a civil lawsuit. And there's all this heat on the Murdaugh family and Paul and all this scrutiny. And that dies down. And all of a sudden, about a year or so later, this openly gay kid in South Carolina, ends up dead in the middle of the road, about like a quarter of a mile from his car. And his wallet's in the car, and his phone is on him, and he's got a bash in head. And so the coroner, for some reason, says it's ruled as a hit and run and an accident. But below the neck, the kid doesn't have any broken bones at all. He's just got this huge gash to the forehead. And so the logical thing is, like, if you get hit by a car, you hit your body, it knocks you like through the air, your shoes would come off, your phone would go somewhere. And for some reason, the coroner says it's an accident, it's a hit and run, case closed. And the mother is like, no, I don't think so. And all the people in the town start talking, no, I don't think so. And then it starts to come out, and there's these rumors that Buster, the oldest Murdaugh's son, was having an affair with the kid. And there's all this talk, This is the South. It's a small place. The state's a small place. Everybody knows everybody's business. And they're all saying, Buster Murdaugh or the Murdaughs had something to do with this kid's death. And they close the case, and they're like, the case is closed. Get lost. Don't ask any more questions. One of the Murdaughs goes to the gay kid's mother, and says, I'm going to be your lawyer. I just need the passcodes to your son's phone. We need to get into that phone and find some things out. So, of course, nothing happens. And there's nobody to sue, which is what the Murdaughs, that's like their prime source of income. And the phone gets erased or disappears, and the case just gets closed, and the Murdaughs disappear. So now everybody's talking. The boat accident, and the gay kid is dying, and probably was messing around with Buster. And that's not a good look for a family that runs the entire state, the dynasty of the Murdaughs. And what happens next? The housekeeper. So at the main house, it's called Moselle. The housekeeper nanny that raised the Murdaugh boys, Buster and Paul, she's going to work, and they have dogs, and so she had been working there like several years, so she was very familiar with the dogs, and she's going up these steps, and the next thing is a 911 call to 911, and it's Maggie Murdaugh, the mother, saying, my housekeeper is dying. She fell down these steps because of the dog. Then Paul gets on the phone and says she's bleeding out of this ear and she can't talk. And they come and get the housekeeper. They take her to the hospital. She slips into a coma and she dies. And she's never able to speak again or tell anybody what really happened. And so everybody's like, they pushed her down the stairs. Well, then you later find out that Alec Murdaugh goes to her two sons, one of which is autistic, and neither of them have an education. And one has a learning disability, so he's not going to be able to figure out anything or ask a question. And Alec says, I'm going to let you sue me, and you're going to sue my insurance, and I'm going to get you a settlement. And, you know, I'm going to guess the mom was working to pay for, you know, the kids and their needs. So he ends up suing, but he doesn't tell the kids. And the kids are like, they're starved. They have no source of income. They're both like around 16, 15. They don't have jobs. And they're just kind of sitting there waiting to hear from Alec. And they even call Alec and they say, you know, did you get us money? And he's like, I'm getting it. I'm working it. It's really complicated. You have to sign these papers. And he gets the kids to like sign some certain papers and sign away all the money. And they're about to be evicted. And they call Alec and say, you know, we're being evicted off of the property and we don't have any money. And Alex knows this and has stole $4.3 million of their money, his fee aside. And he's like with a straight face on the phone saying, we're trying to figure it out. So he literally could have given those kids $2.5 million, $1 million. He could have given them $500,000 and said, this is all there is. And he could have just pocketed the rest. He wasn't happy with doing that. So the thing is that the Murdaugh family has been in control of basically the insurance companies, the judges, the police, the Coast Guard, probably people at the hospital. And they have this like dynasty monopoly. And so they're just have all these people on the payroll to just do whatever they say. And they, keep finding these lawsuits to have. And they have this like system, Alex specifically, to get these uneducated people. One of them was a paraplegic, and he stole money from a paraplegic. Like, and the only way, you're on like life support. The only way to pay for all that. And there's another guy that was a cop, and he like gets in an accident and he cracks a vertebrae in his neck. He can't pay for it. And the Murdaughs swoop in. Hey, we're going to take care of everything. We're going to get you some money. And the medical bills are piling up. And he steals that money. So they said he stole about $10 million that they can find through his own law firm. And the law firm was like 4 partners, PMPED. So that's 5. PMPED. So the law partners were like, well, he's a Murdaugh and he's the boss and he's one of the bosses. And, you know, his grandfather started this firm 100 years ago. The grandfather's portraits hang in the courtrooms, and you don't question the Murdaugh. So Alec would just blow in and say, here's these papers, just sign this, just write me a check, just do that. Well, it turns out that Alec is a oxycodone addict. He's a pill addict, some kind of pill addict. He's also drinking. With the pills, he's drinking on top of it. Then you have Maggie. Maggie's probably an alcoholic. Then you have the 2 kids. Definitely Paul was an alcoholic, hands down, from everything. They called Paul the Caligula. They called him Caligula, a couple people. And he also had this like alter ego when he would get into an alcoholic blackout, and he would do this weird things with his hands, and his friends would say, oh, Paul's now turned into Timmy. And Timmy was like this dark alter ego, which means there's trauma there. There's PTSD and trauma there. Jekyll and Hyde. So everybody's got their own Jekyll and Hyde. So nobody's really innocent in this equation, in my opinion. Maggie was probably an alcoholic and a co-alcoholic. Alec was an alcoholic and a pill freak, pillhead addict. And he's also stealing. And, you know, Alec is probably a trauma survivor, a PTSD survivor. So this is all going on. And then the next thing that happens is there's a phone call to 911. And it's Alec. And he's yelling, my wife and child have just been shot and you better get here. I don't know what I'm doing. Help. You know, and he says the address, Moselle. And that's how, like, 2 of the documentaries start, is with that phone call. So, okay, so that's basically the groundwork. So then I started watching the trial, and it was just so interesting. Like, I couldn't stop watching it. So, about 3 weeks into it, it occurs to me, Kirk, you're a psychic medium. Like, send a little hello out to the wife and see if she, like, picks up the phone psychically. And so I just kind of lift the veil aside, and I'm like, Maggie, and I contact Maggie energetically and psychically. See, I read from the 5th dimension, so I kind of work in 6 dimensions as my gift. And I don't know what your sympathies are about all that, but a good psychic medium that reads past lives has to go into other places and other dimensions. It's very easy with the gift that I was given to contact a soul on the other side. I have connected a lot of past life, a lot of relatives that have passed. And I tell my clients, it even says it on my website, that's not what I do specifically, because some people have said, oh, you're like Teresa Caputo. You know, you like see the dead people. And there's ghosts everywhere. And I think I've done several TV shows about haunted New York, Paris, Los Angeles, and specifically haunted, the South being haunted. To a psychic trance medium, the world is full of spirits and full of ghosts. So when I do a reading for somebody, a past relative might come in, but that's not like that's not my currency. It's not what I tell my clients. I tell them I don't promise that. If a relative is going to show up, they will. I will relay the messages as a medium, but this is not always a guarantee. And for what I do, a life reading, it's not always necessary either. Most often than not, the person will have a past relative around them, and that's usually how the reading starts. Tell me about your grandma. I can see your grandma as your guardian angel, one of them sitting on your shoulder. So then we go in from there, and that's how the reading usually kicks off. But So I obviously know how to do that. So, but I don't do like police stuff. I've never felt drawn toward that, and I don't do medical, intuitive. Uh, so, I do have the 30-year plus arc on the tarot, is which I started reading, and then the past life started coming through without effort. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess this is like my niche. So, but point of fact, if it's a police thing, I don't want to read it, because if it's a murder, it's too much energy for me to absorb as an empath. But, without even thinking, so I was explaining to a friend of mine, like, you've got to watch this. And she couldn't, like, quite catch up. And she was like, there's so many stories and I don't understand. And why is everybody watching this? And I started explaining it to her. And she said, you need to make a YouTube video about all this. Because, I, like, watch probably 90% of the entire court proceedings and all the other, major videos. But, so I'm watching all this, and then it occurs to me, like, just ask Maggie, like, what happened. And, in the other video, this is the second video. In the other video, I was like, look, I'm not going to say whether I think he did it or not. But, I think he did it. And, but as a psychic medium, I'm not going to, like, pretend to, like, go back in time and do a remote viewing. But it kind of was bleeding through. So, okay. So I'm like, just ask Maggie. So I'm like, Maggie. Then I make the connection and I open the door. And she comes back and she says immediately, he did it. And I can hear, like, her southern accent. He did it. He did it. And I was like, whoa. I mean, she was very clear. She answered immediately. And sometimes when you connect a spirit like that, they don't show up for a couple hours. For whatever reason, I don't know the rhyme or reason of that, but they don't always just like that immediately answer. Some of them do. So I was talking about, I contacted Heath Ledger, like, right after he died, because he died, like, right downtown. And I loved Heath Ledger, and I was a big fan. And so I contacted him, which I talk about in the first vid. And so I was just saying, Maggie she said it from beyond the grave. He did it. So a day and a half later, I'm still watching all the trial. The trial is in process. And I contact Maggie again. Maggie, is there anything else? And she says again, he did it. And I wait, and I'm like, is there anything else you want to tell me? And she said, there's circumstances. So now I'm like, okay, now I'm excited, and I'm like, you got to read this. Like, use your psychic eye, read it. Like, what are the circumstances? So I hear... Maggie has a sister. It's an older sister, and apparently the sister makes a lot more money and has a lot more money than even the Murdaughs. And supposedly Maggie was always really jealous of her sister and the sister's husband because they had like 3 times as much money. So that lets me know something's going on. And I know how, like, rich families, the wife gets an allowance. And I knew and I saw through the vapors, if he stole $10 million and he was trying to steal like $1 million every couple of months, there's only a couple of things that would like sustain that. That is not just a drug addiction. There's no drug addiction that costs like $250,000 a month. Doesn't exist. So it could either be he's being blackmailed, is the obvious, and or he's got a gambling problem. So those would be the 2 things. They have an extravagant kind of lifestyle, but it's the South. Things aren't that expensive. They have a beach house. It's a little broken down kind of thing. It's on the water. So, okay, let's just say that was $1 million. And then they have some nice cars. The cars are probably $100,000 each. And they have all these guns. and they have a housekeeper, and they have a nurse and a nursing home for both the parents. And that takes some money, but it doesn't take, like him getting 40 to 45% off of all these medical cases and suing the insurance companies would have afforded him, even with his drug addiction, a very nice lifestyle and also be able to save money. And so they start combing through his banking, and they're like, where's the money? Like, what did you do with this money? Where's it going? He kind of dances around it, and I'm like, he was being blackmailed. So I kind of see that as a psychic read, and it never occurred to me that he would be, first of all, in order to do all the machinations that they did, they've got judges, cops, probably people at the hospital, and probably the Coast Guard on the payroll. So there were rumors that they were drug smuggling up from Florida. And so they have this landing strip right on the property with a little biplane. And so, what are they running? Like, so maybe they're flying up from some little airstrip in Florida somewhere, and that's how they get the drugs into the state. Or maybe they're running guns. Or maybe they're human trafficking. So Paul says to his best friend, when his best friend says, how come you have an airstrip? He's like, oh, we're human trafficking and drug smuggling. And he says it really like a matter of fact. And the friend says, Paul would always make jokes, so I don't know what to believe. And I was like, yeah, but he's being blackmailed. Like when you're under that kind of pressure and you steal money from your own nanny that raised your kids, you're not, it goes beyond like greed and theft. He wasn't just stealing that money because that's what the family did for 100 years. There was like another level, and I was like, he's being blackmailed. It's the only way that it would explain, or a gambling problem, and there was no evidence of a gambling problem at all. They would have picked up on it. But then it dawns on me, oh, the person, one of the people blackmailing him, other than his own family, because one guy in the law firm is looking the other way. Here, just file these papers. Here, just sign these papers. Here, just say you saw this. So everybody had a cut, but I think Maggie knew all of this, and she figured it out, and she knew it was going down, and she said, I'm your wife. I know you're probably got a couple prostitutes, and you're running guns, and you're smuggling drugs, and, I want my allowance to go from $5,000 a month to, 7 or 10. And what's he going to do? I keep the secrets. I help. I'm half of it. So I don't think Maggie was innocent. I want a new car. I want some diamond earrings. I want a fur coat. And so it even did come out that Maggie was really trying to keep up with the sister. So she was probably like, more money, more money. The kids were causing money, and the boat accident lawsuit was about to start to get settled. And, there's rumors that Maggie is going to start filing for a divorce on top of it. I'm going to get the beach house. I'm going to get the dogs. I'm going to get the Mercedes, and I'm also going to get an allowance, and you're going to pay. So Maggie kind of had her gravy train going on, and Paul, he's a rich kid alcoholic, and Paul's known to like leave guns and clothes and his shit all over the state. Whenever he stays with somebody, he shows up. He trashes the clothes. They go hunting. He ends up just getting in his car, half drunk, and leaving. And he was known to do this. So Paul is definitely a PTSD and trauma survivor. But, he's just like a rich kid. Like, we have a bunch of guns back at the house. I don't know. He just gets in the car and leaves like his guns all over the place and his clothes. And they were just like, oh, they just accepted it. That's Paul. So Paul had his messy stuff going on. He was probably had his own credit card. Buster probably had his own credit card. So the long and the short of it, so he was probably being blackmailed by several law enforcement or medical doctors. Like, you have to pay all those people off to keep all those plates in the air. So that kind of explains, in addition, that he was an alcoholic and a drug addict on top of it. So, he's starting to bottom out. It's a 20-year alcoholism and addiction arc. They're about to sue in civil court, and, the wagons are circling. It's people keep asking more questions about the gay kid, about the housekeeper, and now it's adding up, and it just started this mess that, like, couldn't be stopped. And, especially if, like, an active addict, Paul would go through the house at Moselle and try to find the father's drugs, and he was egged on by the mother. The mother would be like, Paul, go find the drugs. So that was going to be the mother's leverage. He's an addict. He's an alcoholic. He's doing all this weird stuff in his business, and he's an abuser. And we found the drugs all the time. So she was setting up the case. She was setting the case up in her mind, and he knew it. And, maybe he was smacking her around. She's not going to tell anybody. They're the Murdaughs, you don't tell. I mean, your dad's either a psychopath or a sociopath. You're not going to tell. You don't tell. That's why it's a powerful family. You do not talk. You take your cut. Paul goes and he rolls a car, and he calls his grandpa, and he said, we're on the side of the road. We almost died. The car's tipped over. And the parents and the grandfather show up, and they get all the alcohol out of the car before they ever call the cops. And one of them just takes off with the evidence, and then they turn the car over, and then they call the tow truck and the cops. So these are people that are used to act and deny and act. So the one thing I just wanted to say about Alec that is the most obvious, which nobody has said at all, and that is a person whose family has been running the state for over 100 years, and they have that name, the energy and impact. I'm a Murdaugh. Murdaughs don't go to jail. Murdaughs don't get in trouble. Murdaughs don't get caught. So he's kind of got all that hubris going on. But here's the thing, the psychological thing, which is obvious. A man of power like that, during the 911 call, he was like, my kid and child, my wife and my child have been shot. Somebody get here. And he runs up to the house, and he gets a gun, and he waits. Here's the thing. This is the tell, as far as I'm concerned. One of the main tells. He is that wealthy. He's juiced up on alcohol and pills constantly. So he, has this rabid, low-grade rage, psychopathology, sociopath. You would get on the phone and you would call the head of the police in the entire state. If he didn't do it, he would be like, somebody killed two of the Murdaughs? You're going to get on the phone and you're going to be, let me talk to, Bill, the head cop. They all know each other. They're probably all hanging out at the hooker bar together. They're probably all own these bars together. Like, you get on the phone and you go, let me speak to Bill. Bill, listen, somebody shot Maggie and Paul. They're dead. Their guts are splattered all over the place. You close the border to the state, get the Coast Guard. I want these people, whoever did this, I want their asses. And that's what you would really say. That's what you would really say if you're a man of power and a family of power. You say, nobody messes with the Murdaughs. You find them, whoever it is. They might still be on the property. That was the other thing. He never called them and said, I'm afraid for my life. I'm hiding in the house, in the bathroom with the shotgun. Like they might still be on the property. He never says that either. So even a normal person would just be like, they're probably still around. They're probably coming for me. Get somebody here. I'm going to be, in the feed room, with the gun cocked until the cops get here. Doesn't say that either. So that was like the real tell. So I watched, let's see, the nurse was questioned over an hour. The new housekeeper was questioned over an hour. And then the brothers, and then this one kid, Rogan, who was close to the family, but he mainly stayed at the beach house with the mom. So he kind of was like friendly with the mom. I don't know if him and the mom were getting it on. I kind of feel that intuitively. Like him and the mother had something. I could see it when he was testifying. In any event, so I think the housekeeper, the new housekeeper, she knows what happened, and she wouldn't tell. She either hid the bloody clothes or she cleaned up the blood because she just didn't want to deal with it, and that's just what you do anyway. So she was smart enough. I don't think the Blanca, the housekeeper, even got close to telling what she knows. She was obviously evasive. I saw that just as a person watching, and then also psychically and spiritually. She wasn't going to let anything, I don't know. The housekeeper knows. And Rogan knows as well. And then lastly, I connected to Paul psychically, and I got a little surprise. When I connected psychically as a medium to Paul, believe it or not, I wasn't expecting this. Paul was really calm. He was completely at peace. Now, if you listen to the court thing, about the actual logistics of how he was shot and where. I mean, they basically, his dad, the shooter, blew his head basically off. Like from here to here was just gone. So Paul was really out of his body immediately, whereas Maggie was like crawling on the ground. And the fact that he shot Maggie in the back specifically, if you love your wife and you're pissed at her and you're in a 20-year alcoholism addiction and your wife's going to take you to the cleaners, yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. Paul's going to cost me $5 million from this boating accident. And Paul is, aligned with the wife and digging up my drugs. And, the wife's about to sue me for everything and expose me. It's all going to come out. That's enough reason. There doesn't have to be any other. In the mind of an active, bottoming out alcoholic and addict that is probably an alcoholic and addiction psychosis. He was in psychosis and bottoming out himself because he goes straight to rehab. You don't need another. You don't need another excuse. You got money, exposure. You're going to be exposed. You're going to lose your fortune, and the family's going to lose its good name. What else? They were like, oh, it's circumstantial. No, it's not. It's not. You've got 3: means, motive, and opportunity. The other thing is, like I said, if he really did not do it, he would have gotten on the phone and said, I want Bill and Joe and Carl, all his buddies, get out here right now and let's find these mofos that executed my wife. The fact that he shoots Maggie twice and she falls to her knees and she's like kind of crawling toward Paul, her son, like trying to get away, and he comes up and he's like, right 2 in the back. That means it was personal. The other thing is, if it was a lone shooter or a different person that was pissed off at the Murdaugh family and wanted to like frame Alec, why didn't he say, I'm being framed? I'm being framed. I'm a patsy. I'm being framed. Just like in the Kennedy thing, You know, the minute they arrested Lee Harvey Oswald, he said, I didn't do it. I am a patsy. I've been set up. Never came out of Alex's mouth like, I got set up. This is somebody that is pissed off at our family. He should have said that. And so he didn't think it through. The only other thing that he did do a mistake on was he should have taken both the phones or all three phones. First of all, I think he had a second phone. Anybody that does the kind of business and double dealings and all this shit, you know, you can afford it and you definitely need it. You need a second burner phone. You need a second private phone with no GPS and, you know, it doesn't hold any information. So there's two phones. But he should have taken Maggie's phone and he should have taken Paul's phone and should have just thrown them in the pond somewhere. But instead, you know, the phone gets thrown out like all the way down off the property. And so during the trial, they take the GPS on the phone from Alex and Alex's like a Range Rover thing. And they take the GPS out of that. And they find out that when he gets to the area where the phone was thrown in the grass, he slowed down from 80 miles an hour to 40. So, you know, you slow down, you're driving to establish the alibi. And then so he takes Maggie's phone, he yanks it, throws it like outside. And they find it like in 10 minutes. He should have taken both phones. He should have taken Paul's phone and he should have taken Maggie's phone. He should have just put it in the water somewhere. I don't know. So that's all that. So I connected to Paul. We're at 40 minutes. Whoa. I connected to Paul, and Paul was really calm. And I kind of sat there, and I was like, do you want to say anything? And Paul was in one piece. Mentally, psychically, energetically, he was in one piece, and he was calm. I don't know, you know, somebody sent me an email about the first video, and I wrote her back, you know, I did contact Paul. I'm thinking about making a second video. And I just explained Paul's at peace. And he's not traumatized at all. And he even said to me, you know, I caused my family a lot of pain and a lot of shame and a lot of money. And I know that I was not a bad son, but I know that I was a handful. And my dad just did what he did. And, you know, he wouldn't say my dad did it. He didn't say that. Paul said, I love my dad. And I caused my family a lot of shame and money and pride. And I'm sorry for that. And he just seemed really evolved. Like he just kind of like knew it was coming and didn't skip a beat, left his body. So he didn't seem, and a lot of times when people die, when I've contacted them on the astral, like ghosts for people, if the ghost dies in a traumatic way, a lot of times the ghost doesn't know what happened. The person on the other side out of their body, they don't know what happened. They don't know where they're going. Nobody comes to get them. So they're like, you know, if you hit somebody in the face, in the head, you don't know, like, where am I? So there is a period where a spirit, if they die in a traumatic way, and it's not like a long drawn out medical illness, but it's a sudden accident, they don't really know what happened. And so they're in trauma. Paul was not in trauma at all. So this woman just said, I'm really glad to know that Paul is okay. And that was the other impetus to like make the video, was like, maybe a lot of people just want to hear Paul is okay. So I'm letting you know that Paul was very calm. He's in one piece and he doesn't blame his father at all. And I said, is there anything else, Paul? And he said, yeah, there's one thing else. And I said, what? And he said, Buster knows the truth. And I went, ooh. He said, Buster knows the truth. Buster knows what happened. So I'm going to leave you with that. You know, if you're new to the whole thing, watch the 3 documentaries first, Netflix. HBO and ID channel. Watch those first, and that'll give you the general foundation, and then start watching the trial stuff and both sides, prosecutor and defense. It's fascinating. The best testimonies are Rogan, Gibson, the friend of the family. Then watch Blanca. Then watch, did I say the nurse? Rogan, Blanca. The brother is really good. There's one brother that's not a lawyer. And Buster Buster's pretty it's a pretty flat thing. You don't really need to watch it. And then you watch Alex, of course. And then, the jury comes back in 3 hours, but they said they made their mind up at 45 minutes. So I think that's the basic idea. Oh, and then one last thing. I go and I watch the video again and again and again when the cops pull up and Alec is in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. And only 2 hours or 3 hours before, he was in a blue polo shirt, this Willie polo shirt, Willie the Whale or something. And he's wearing a pair of shorts. So now he's in shorts, different shorts, or the same shorts, but a t-shirt. And so now my energetic psychic expertise comes in because I read auras. And I'm looking at Alec fresh from the kill. And you can tell that he has had a shower. Hands down, he's had a shower energetically. You can see it in his aura. And anybody that reads energy, I invite you to go ahead and read this. He's standing there, the cops pull up, and they're like, do you have a gun? And he's like, yes, I got scared. I went and got a gun. And then they start asking him questions. And then you look at his hands energetically, and one hand, the left hand, specifically is glowing this kind of green energetic color, which means there's no stagnation. What that means and what I saw and what that tells me is he, for some reason, first of all, it was obvious he had just taken a shower. And even the brother who came from an hour away, and they said, what did you think about Alec when you first pulled up? And he was like, he just had a shower. The brother even says this. So energetically, you can see it. But for some reason, he cleaned one hand more than the other. And this hand is kind of glowing energetically. And I was like, how do you hold a gun? I don't know that much anything about guns. But I guess the GSR, the gunshot residue, it would probably come back. Maybe it comes back, or maybe it is more on one. It was more on one hand, and he kept scrubbing this hand the most. And so for you that are energy readers, I invite you to go ahead and check that out if you're into the whole thing of it all. So anyways, that's it. 48 minutes. So that's my psychic read on the whole thing. He was being blackmailed, probably by the wife. She was probably having an affair with one of the kids' best friends. The husband probably knew about that and didn't like it. It's possible that they were running guns or human trafficking. There's just so much shit going on. It was bound. The bill became due. And so the final comment of the judge before he's going to sentence, he says, maybe you didn't kill him, but the monster that you became did. Whoa, okay. The judge, who's been watching the Murdaughs rape and pillage for, 40 years, the judge was on the money. Maybe you didn't kill him, but the monster that you became did. And that's a psychopath. They don't talk about being a sociopath or a psychopathic family. That family's a family of psychopaths and sociopaths and trauma survivors and PTSD survivors. So there was going to be an explosion. There was going to be, you had to pay, the bill was going to become due for all the shit they did, and the pendulum just swung the other way. And it's the monster wants to be fed. So Maggie, Paul, and Alec all got fed to that family monster, all the same time. as far as I'm concerned. You know, after a certain point in the alcoholic addiction psychosis, the addict doesn't know what they're doing. They don't know what you're doing. You have alcoholic psychosis. You don't know. I mean, I'm also an alcoholic addict in recovery, 39 years. I'm sober. So people have suggested, oh, you were smoking hooch, you know, and you're not a real medium. You're just high. No, I'm actually in recovery 39 years sober. So all the mediumship work that I've done as an adult has all been with no drugs. Anyways, so that's all that. But yes, alcohol becomes its own rapacious creditor, so to speak. And yeah, here's the bill. The bill is due now. And it, unfortunately, you know, the only other thing I want to just wrap it up and say, I'm really sad. I don't take any pleasure in knowing these things or seeing these things. I'm actually really sad. It's so tragic that a family that had the capacity to do so much good with all that power and protect people ended up raping people, and people died. They were dropping like flies there for a couple of years, and they probably would have, you know, think about all the people you don't know about that they raped and killed. So, you know, I guess God stepped in and put an end to it all. And so my heart goes out to anybody that is directly connected to this case. Truly, you have my blessings and my prayers. It's painful and it's tragic for all. So that's it. My name's Kirk Kerber. I do professional mediumship work. I'm an easy guy to get a hold of with an easy name. And you can go to my profile page. You can just Google my name. I have my own website, kirkspiritual.com. And yeah, I pray that Maggie and Paul and Alec and Buster, you know, find some peace. And may God have pity on them, all of them. Nobody is innocent in an equation like this, in my opinion. Everybody had a part to play. And as a psychic reader and reading people's like lives and timelines and past lives, you know, it's all this compounded network that is stacked. Everybody's energy is all stacked together. So, you know, you can say Paul was evil and poor Paul, Alec was evil and poor Paul. And Alec did say one thing, because the sister said, do you think they suffered? And Alex said they didn't suffer at all. And that meant he was there. Yeah, I did it quick and painless. So Maggie suffered a little bit because she was crawling and shot in the back. He execution style, but Paul went out like immediately, got out of his body, and he already knew everything. You know, so Paul is at peace. I don't think Maggie is, but anyway, so that's all that. So that's the big finish. And if you like my video, please tell your friends and leave any comments you like. And my profile page is right down there. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next video. Shakti Namaste. Shakti.